The antebellum time period was the time period immediately preceding the Civil War. Generally, it was a time of many reforms. The most important reform, of course, was abolition, important because it was getting rid of race-based slavery that had been around for a couple hundred years. And of course, it's also very important because it got done. There's no knowledge in the 1830s or 1840s of which of the many reform movements were going to be successful. There was temperance, there was abolition, there was the asylum movement to improve mental health hospitals, to improve prisons, there were educational reforms, and today we're going to look at temperance. The temperance movement is based upon a very simple idea. The idea was the belief that alcohol was the essence of all evil, that if one got rid of alcohol, that many evil actions, that crime, for example, would disappear. The American Temperance Society is founded in the early 19th century. Lyman Beecher, Lucretia Mott, and others were some of the early important founders. As is the case with many of the reform movements, they started with the push from the very religious. Lyman Beecher was, for example, a very prominent preacher. His daughter, Harriet Beecher Stowe, will become one of the most prominent people in the abolitionist movement. So very conservative, very religious people were very important in the early reform movements, including temperance and abolition in the 19th century. Again, those in favor of temperance believed that all social problems and a fair number of criminal problems would disappear if we just got rid of alcohol. Here are a couple of common pieces of temperance literature of the time. To the left, you see a picture of a fairly large number of women that says, "Lips that touch liquor shall not touch ours," or one might sometimes hear, "Lips that touch wine will never touch mine." On the right, you see the cover of a book that's select temperance tracts. That is, you would buy these because they're stories that point out the need and importance of temperance. Within the more radical part of the temperance movement would be people like Carrie Nation. Now, the Temperance Society itself is founded in the 1820s. It grows into great strength by the 1840s. Now, Carrie Nation herself is more of a mid and late 19th century temperance person. A noted radical, as you can see in this picture. She would go into a bar or saloon, as they were called at the time, with a hand hatchet and try to destroy the bar itself. That is, make it so it could no longer be used. A famous quote, Carrie Nation saw herself as a bulldog running along at the feet of Jesus, barking at what he does not like. Again, here you see another common poster, temperance being like a chariot pulled by a powerful steed with a spear back ready to end drinking. And some of the early important people, Lyman Beecher, Neil Dow, Lucretia Mott. Lucretia Mott, of course, will also be very important in the suffrage movement, the women's rights movement also of the early and mid-19th century. The 19th century temperance movement does have some noted successes, as you can see on this graph. In 1820, the number of gallons of alcohol consumed per capita, per person, would be a little bit over 5 gallons. And as you can see, by the late 19th century, that's down to about 2 gallons. There were thousands of local temperance societies across the United States, and they did have some significant effect. Again, another very prominent illustration of the temperance movement. You can see on the left the beginning of what would be called the drunkard's progress, having a drink. On step 2, going out a couple times for drinks. Steps 3 and 4, becoming inebriated and breaking into fights while drinking. At the top, going out with friends drinking, probably leaving one's wife and family at home. And on the downward spiral on the right-hand side, being poor, destitute, perhaps captured, perhaps taken into slavery, and then the inset in the middle, your widow and your young child standing on your grave, because that's what drinking is. It starts with a glass and it ends with your death and the destruction of your family. So, on the one hand, temperance is successful in decreasing the amount of alcohol consumed per capita in the late 19th century. On the other hand, we don't have full temperance, what will be known as prohibition, until the 20th century. Not until the 18th Amendment bans liquor and the companion Volstead Act defines liquor as being anything of 0.5% or more alcohol. Not until the 1920s does that take place, and prohibition at that point will be fairly short-lived. Prohibition will be repealed by the 21st Amendment. However, the effects of temperance are certainly still around. In states that allow laws county by county, there are certainly states that still have dry counties. That is, a county where the consumption, distillation, or purchase of alcohol is still illegal today.